Not too long ago, we visited a small Canadian town called Sunbeams for a catch-up with our friend and vacation rental guru, Matt Landau.
I wanted to actually open a cold open for this with you describing to me what it was like in the room at the Apple release, where you were sitting and what you were looking at.
So kind of one of those moments in your life where you're sitting in a room and almost feels like you're floating in a different time space continuum. I was lucky enough to be in the room when Steve Jobs launched iPhone, and I managed to muscle my way up to the front row, and I was literally 15 feet from the podium when he kind of brought it out and the world gasped. And that was sort of a moment in time, especially in the tech world, where it's that defining moment of innovation, and it was super cool. It was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen.
How did it change the way that you think about tech?
It made me realize that well-built tech and well-engineered tech and well thought through and tech that really solves problems has the power to completely transform industry. And I think that, in that case, people had been wondering when they were going to come out with that piece of technology. I mean, they had done the music, and the next logical thing was the phone. And so when it kind of came, it was almost expected, but it didn't really diminish the amount of impact that it had. And I think that it completely changed the way people communicate around the world. And it obviously spawns other industries, competition, et cetera. But I think from just a sort of an outsider looking in, it was the first time I'd ever been in an event where you were literally witnessing history. And that was super cool, right? Almost like the Apollo 11 moment of the tech industry. That was amazing.
And did you sneak into this event, or were you an employee?
I was an employee, but I was working at Apple in South Africa. And so I was at the event, representing the continent. And, we were sort of in the back row, and I said, enough of this. I'm going to try my luck. So I sort of waltzed up to the front, and, you passing VIPs and sort of really important people. And I saw an open chair, literally in row 2. And I said, you know what? The worst they can say is no. And from that point, I kind of shuffled my way in and just sat down and hoped that no one noticed. And and there I was, literally 10 feet from history.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
And I think also the iPhone was an interesting example of a piece of technology that no one knew they needed so desperately before it arrived. And in hindsight, we could never go back any other way, right?
For sure. I mean, I think, you look at even the industry right before that industry was the music industry. And, this imagination of I can have 1,000 songs in my pocket and I don't need to have LPs or CDs or whatever. Again, people thought that communicating meant like a flip phone or one of those Nokia bricks that, literally send and receive calls. And I think, again, what they did so elegantly was to bring together so many different pieces of people's day-to-day lives and bring it into a single device where you could, do so many amazing things beyond just sort of making and receiving phone calls. And so that was to me, a monumental shift in the way that people engage with technology. And I think it might even be the moment when technology really took off, because that was early. People were still on modem back then, right? I mean, that was almost pre fast internet and streaming, et cetera. And so, those kind of moments really fast forward. They're those catalytic moments when things just move quicker. And that was exciting.
And so at that time you were working for Apple.
Yeah.
You went on to do some work in finance.
Yeah.
And then you make your way into this vacation rental space.
Yeah.
About which you knew very little.
Sure.
So I first am curious, what was your strategy for educating yourself?
When I joined Operto, I literally had no idea beyond. I mean, I was comfortable with the technology. I knew what the tech did, and I knew the problem that it was solving. But in terms of our industry, as you know, there's so many like acronyms and words that are very unique to our space. And so, I remember joining day one, and someone was like, "Well, these are our PMS partners," blah 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 blah, and I literally was like, "Say again?
What did I get myself into?"
Huh? And so I had kind of that, and I'm like, then you go and you Google PMS. Well, you're not going to get property management system out of Google on page 1, 2, 3, or even to 10, right? So, I'm like, I actually have no idea what they're talking about. And then it was like, and these are the OTAs we work with, and I'm like, again, oh no. Again, I think that's kind of been beneficial for me, as I came in with like no industry experience, other than having been a guest at an Airbnb or hotels and sort of being on that side of the value equation. But from purely working in industry, it was awesome because I like jumped in with both feet, had no idea what was happening, and managed to, I think, hopefully blow a lot of sort of fresh air and direction into the company at that point.
And I think being comfortable with the fact that it takes time to wrap your head around all this stuff if you are new is big, because it is like drinking from a fire hose at the beginning.
Totally.
And being patient and maybe educating yourself as much as possible, but also not letting it take you down.
Sure. I think the one thing I will say for our space that I found really magical is, I showed up to the first trade show. I was over in France, I believe, and show up and you've been meeting people over Zoom calls because it was obviously pandemic or whatever, but everyone is so welcoming and accommodating. Like even our direct competitors were like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And I'm like, this is odd.
Who was that?
It was all the guys from Point Central and Remote Lock and Links, and they're like lining up and we're having beers. I'm like, this is weird. I am not used to this level of like, "Hey, bro," with your competitors, and I found it really refreshing, and it was nice to feel like you're in a space that's not massively cutthroat, that there's a large enough addressable market out there and enough people seeking solutions to the problems you're solving, that there's enough room in it for everyone to play in the sandbox. And I think that for me was really cool.
I love that.
Yeah.